Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Carlos Baptista. He's the Associate Professor in the Department of Neuroscience in the College of Medicine at the University of Toledo, and he is going to talk about the art and science of plastination. So welcome, Dr. Baptista.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak about something that I'm very passionate for the last 30 years. And I am an MD training, but I have dedicated my life for the last 30, 35 years teaching gross anatomy for medical students. And then I always tell the students that when they are dissecting, they should think about as an art. Okay? They should dissect the body thinking that this is going to be really a piece of art. And then last year has a very interesting thing. One student was dissecting, and he dissected the body, he chopped everything, everything was so different. So then he said to me, he said, "You told me to do an art." And I said, "Yes, and you did. But I was thinking about more like a Rembrandt, and you did a Picasso. That is very nice." Okay? So talking about this, I go in completely the direction different from Roy, because I'm using human body, and I'm going to tell you the story about a little how the plastination came about. How many of you had a chance to see a body exhibit? See, the body exhibits that, in fact, we have a body exhibit that came here, and the creator of the plastination process is Dr. von Hagens. That is another exhibit that was in Chicago and many other places. How I got interested in this? 1984, I was finishing my PhD at that time, and I came across with a paper of Dr. von Hagens. He was at the University of Heidelberg, and he put in this paper, he was talking about replacing water and fat with a polymer that will keep the specimen completely, permanently displayed for life. And I was so interested because it was the first advancement that we have in anatomical technique up to that point from centuries. So then I was so interested, and I wanted to do the plastination, but I had one limitation. Brazil was in the height of the dictatorship. I didn't have any money, and Dr. von Hagens will give the training in Germany, and I couldn't go to Germany. So then in '84, I was fortunate to come to US. And like all Americans, they are so generous. What happened, a friend of mine in the old Medical College of Ohio said to me, "Do you want to do this?" He bought the plastic from me from Germany, and he sent the plastic as a gift to Brazil. So in the customs, they could not avoid giving me the plastic because it was a gift. So with that, I started doing. And I did myself, because I said, well, if Dr. von Hagens as a scientist did the work as a scientist, I would be able to replicate his work. And I did, and I prepared my first organ that was a heart. And if you go to the museum today, you will be able to see the heart that's in the museum. Okay? So Dr. von Hagens, when he invented plastination, his philosophy is saying plastination transforms the body, an object of individual mourning, into an object of reverence, learning, enlightenment, and appreciation. Here's Dr. von Hagens in front of the famous lesson of anatomy of Dr. Toop of Rembrandt. And then you look him with his hat. And then we always ask him, why do you wear his hat? He said, well, like in the Renaissance, I want to show that I am independent from the clergy, from everybody political, so I can do whatever I do. I have another reason, because I met him in 1990, and he's bald, okay? So what is plastination? Plastination is a technique used in anatomy and pathology. In fact, the first plastinate objects that were done in this country were pathologists. The anatomists were resistant to do plastination because they were so used to the body dissection, they thought that we are not going that direction. So the pathologists embraced it. And then that's the way plastination came to the US. Okay? And then you can replace the water and the fat by the polymer. And they use the specimens that can be touched, do not smell, do not decay, and retain the most microscopic properties as the original sample. In fact, Dr. von Hagens always say that his specimens were going to last longer than the mummies of the Egypt. Okay. So here's Dr. von Hagen with his patent. 1978, he patented the process, and for 10 years, we had to buy the plastic from Germany. It's a Biodur, that's called Biodur, and then it was not available. Now the plastic is available everywhere, and then that's why there was a diffusion and much greater of plastination after that. Here's some kinds of polymers that we use. First, this one is a silicone. Silicone, if you want to see an organ, and is an organ and is a body, is better to do in silicone. So in this, I have some example like a frog, the heart and lung, the heart sections, a laminectomy that you will be able to see this in the museum. It is a very, very interesting that it was done by a medical student, and you can see that we have one that now in display. This one is displayed in the simulation center, the third floor, and I have one in the museum that was dissected by the student. In fact, most of the specimens I have in the museum we have there were done by the medical students. Here's another kind of plastic, epoxy. And epoxy is ideal for you to do cross-sections. When you do cross-sections, and the property of the plastic make the organ transparent. So you can see the fat, it practically disappear, and you can see in details like muscles. And if you see on the right side, you have a plastinario of Dr. von Hagen's in Guben, south of Berlin. You can see his completely sections of the human body. Okay? So here's another plastic that is a polyester. When he invented polyester, he invented for using in brains, because you see the contrast between white matter and gray matter. You see there's a very, very shocking difference. In fact, Dr. von Hagen is an MD by training, but he's a chemist. So that's why he was able to come up with this technique. What are the technique, the process? Is a very, very simple process. First, you fix the tissues like you always fix the tissue when you have a body, preparing the body for dissections and for the students to study. You use formaldehyde. Then you dissect, then you dehydrate, and you remove, using acetone, you remove the water. As you remove the water, you change in different baths of acetone until you measure and see that there is no water more in the specimen. And then when you remove the water, you put in a room temperature and you remove the fat. And then the specimen is ready for impregnate with plastic. Then you go to the phase that's called impregnation. It is called forced impregnation because you put the specimen under the vacuum, and then slowly you start applying vacuum. As you see the bubbling of the acetone come in the surface of the plastic, you know that the process is taking place. Sometimes take 1 month, sometimes take 2 months for you to do it. Okay? Once you don't see any bubbles, means there is no acetone, so practically the plastic already is inside of the organ or the body. Okay? And then what you need to do is to harden the specimen. So the poses that you see in exhibits, that beautiful poses, is done in this end of the process, where you can put the specimen in any position, and then you put this in a chamber where the gas, that is a gas that you cure the specimen, will harden the specimen in the position that you want. So Dr. von Hagen always say this: if you have a good quality specimen, you have a good plastinate. If you start with a bad dissection and a bad specimen, you don't get a good plastinate. So that's why you use the best specimens we have to plastinate, so we save money, and at the same time, this is a kind of, if you see one structure that has a variation or something that is very unique. Right now, I have a body that came from University of Michigan that is a situs inversus. So the entire side of the body is inverted. So heart is on the right side, so liver is on the left side, and this is a very rare. I saw this in a book when I was studying as a student, and I never had a privilege to see it. Now we have one that I'm going to start plastinate soon, because it's a big, big torso. Okay? So here is the dehydration. Here's how you have 3 containers of dehydration, and you push the specimen 1, stay 1 week. The following week, you put in a new 100% acetone. Then the third is going to be 100% acetone again. And then you do the fatting for 1 week more. So you can imagine the dehydrated process would take 4 weeks for you to accomplish. Okay? So here is an example of I use a freezer, and I have explosion-proof freezer. In the left, and you see how expensive are my containers that I have there. They were all bought in Walmart, okay? Save money. And on the right side, you see some of the brains already being dehydrated. And I measure with an acetonometer. It's the same that you use for if you make your own beer, okay? You can measure the concentration of alcohol. It's the same that we do. I measure the concentration of acetone and water inside of the tissue. And that's the way I know when it is very well dehydrated. Then goes for the impregnation. So here is from an acetone. I put inside the plastic that is liquid, close the chamber, and apply vacuum. And I leave there for 30 days. So every day I go in, change a little the vacuum, increase the vacuum. Right now I'm doing one fish. In fact, that's the first time I'm doing a fish. And then is a baby shark that I have also. Baby shark. It has some exotic fishes that came from New York that I'm doing for them there. And then I did one now. I'm trying to do one to see if I don't lose it, because if I lose the rest, you know, they'll come and kill me, okay? So here's the chamber. You have different size of chambers. So this is, on the right side is a medium size, and you can see even a stomach inside there, all in color, okay? And on the left side, you see a chamber that is big enough for a small little body, okay? And then you have the manometers that I control my pressures and the vacuum pump. And the cross-leaking, that is the hardening, is done very simply with using an aquarium pump. I have the liquid that is a tetraethylsilane that they call, and then what happens is I bubbling with the air, and this creates an atmosphere of gas inside the chamber, and in contact with the specimen will harden the specimen. So how we use this? We use for teaching. Okay? So here is our former dean, Dr. Gold, in showing one of the hearts we have for the students. It's very nice because you can touch this. In the past, when you had the formaldehyde, you couldn't do this anymore. Now, you can with the plastination specimens. On the right side, you have another professor that is retired already. We had a mini-med school. And in mini-med school, they showed the organs to the audience. Okay? I was thinking about bringing here, but then I was afraid if I bring here and everybody's entertaining about the specimen here, I will miss to be there for the tour. So that's why I didn't bring it. I think it was not safe. So we use for the first year, second year, physician assistants, human donation science, medical physics. We use all of this for the specimens. And then here is student-to-student, our student-to-student program, bringing more or less 1,500 students a year in our campus. And before, they used to go to a room and we bring the specimens to them. Then last December, we create this museum so they can come in and see the specimens. They can have an explanation. It's not only what I say, a freaky show. They will come and see the bodies and see all the organs, but now they can learn something. They can go in the tablets and click and see descriptions for what the organs are. Okay? But you can see here in 1986, when we started this program, you can see on the left a student showing the students the brain inside of a container. Now, if you look on the right side, you can see the students now holding the heart. Okay? And then there was a very, very nice time when we started with the plastination here. So the beginning was a dream of Dr. von Hagens. He said, okay, organs I did, now I want to do a full body. So this picture was taken in 1990. This is his first cadaver. And unbelievably, this is me, okay, next to the cadaver. So you're going to see that there are some things that get much better. That's the cadaver. And then I got much worse, okay? So the challenge for Dr. von Hagens was this. Plastination of the whole body is an intellectual achievement because it requires from the anatomist the vision of the final product, the same way an artist imagined a statue he will sculpture. Okay? And this is true. Every time I'm doing the plastination, I have to think about what do I want to show in this specimen. So should I put in this position? Should I put in the other position? Should I keep open? Should I enhance the valves of the heart? So I have to be thinking about ahead of time, okay, what I want to see. Okay? So here is some beautiful pictures that Dr. von Hagens took his bodies. Here's on the right side, see, Roy referred to Andrés Vesalius in 1514. So Dr. von Hagens went and took from the books of Vesalius, he took some of his ideas, okay? And look in this side, in right side, is a cast, a complete cast of all the vascular system. All the tissue is corroded. The only thing left is the vascular cast. And you can see this with the page, and next to the page of Vesalius. Here's another one from Vesalius too. You can see that he's showing the muscles, and Dr. von Hagens did exactly the same with his bodies. Okay. Here's the third. This came from Juan Valverde Amusco's History de la Composición de Human Body, Rome in 1560. So this is a man holding his own skin. Okay? And then it's amazing because it was dissected, really, the skin, and then he removed the skin completely, and they plastinated the skin separate. Okay? So here, let's go back here. So here, this picture of our museum here, Auguste Rodin, and his thinker. And it was so interesting because in 2011, Dr. von Hagens came here for one conference in our campus. And then we had a reception in this museum, and then it was open the galleries for us. And then Dr. von Hagens came in and looked Rodin here, and he came to me and said, I want to show you something. And then he said, see, that is the thinker of Rodin. And he took a card and said, and this is my thinker, okay? And his thinker is on the right side. And it's fascinating the way, the position that he puts, because if you look the eyes, because that's the only thing that's not real, okay, is the eye that's in glass. But if you look at the expressions, it's amazing how he was able to obtain a specimen like this. In the back, he used the specimen to show the spinal cord, okay, and the entire dissection of the spinal cord. When a medical student sees something like this, they cannot believe that you can do a specimen like that, okay. We are not able to have yet the specimens that as big. We just acquired now a chamber that is big enough that I will be able to start preparing something like this. So here are another poses that von Hagens have, and more likely you saw this in the exhibits. Okay? So here's another one, or the horse and the rider. This was the first time it was displayed in Chicago. And then what he did, he put the rider on the horse, and then when he hardened both of them, they had to create a chamber, a big chamber, to be able to harden the horse in that position. And he created the chamber with plastics, okay? So here's another one, the archer, okay? The archer. And you can imagine the positions that he has to think about to do this, okay? That's why I say always that he's an artist, okay? This is the pregnant woman. I don't know if you remember, but the pregnant woman was first displayed in, I think it was in Los Angeles. And then somebody stole the baby. I don't know if you remember that. Somebody went there, and then she was a mental illness patient, and then she stole the baby, and then they found later. But then now in every exhibit you go that has human fetus or specimens that has bodies like this, they have a guard now because they are always afraid that somebody is coming to steal. The Tai Chi man, okay, that's interesting. In his Plastinarium in Guben, when you walk in, he must have maybe 100 people working for him. And then they have all these bodies that are donated to him for doing that. And then when we visit, we saw one that has a man playing a saxophone, okay? So then we asked him, what is going to be this? He said, well, this we are going to name Bill Clinton, okay? Because the person that donated wants to be plastinated with a saxophone, but they're not going to give the name of the person, okay? So here's some animals. Now he has the body world of animals, that you can see that nice animal. Here's, I think it was fantastic. You see the dialogue. You see the two halves talking to each other with the organs in the center of the table. Okay. And it's interesting when you ask, see, why he's doing this with the bodies. In fact, his idea is that he created drawers, doors in the body, so he actually project the brain in different directions, because he thinks that when the student comes in and have to mentally create the body and put it back together, they will learn much more. Okay, that was his idea for doing this kind of exotic positions and things. And another thing, he said, if I have an exhibit that you have a body the way it is preserved, there is no interest, because the people will never see each other in that position. By putting this in that position, it creates the interest from the public. So here are his largest animals. This is the camel. The camel was in Cleveland many, many years back. And the elephant, I haven't never seen the elephant. But when I went to Guben, and then in 2008, has a chamber more or less the size of this room outside, completely covered with the styrofoam. And then we asked what is inside there. And then he said, I have an elephant. So nobody believed it. Nobody was saying, oh, no, he doesn't have an elephant. Yes, he did have an elephant, because you can see the elephant there now, okay? And then there are others exhibits around. And this one here is from Dr. Roy Glover. He used to be in the University of Michigan. And then he retired, and so he had his own exhibit. And then he put also the specimens in different poses. You saw a lot of these bodies in his exhibit comes from China. Okay. And another one is Dr. Sui from China. In fact, he created a museum that's called the Mysterious Museum. And he has the giant animals that he has. One of them is the whale that you see on the right. Okay? So it was amazing. They are so huge that he has to cut in pieces and assemble with a steel frame to put them together to be able to exhibit. One side is completely dissected, so you can see the entire organs, and the other side is intact, so you can go around and visit. And he said all the other mammals. He has a museum that is 3 floors. The first floor is only mammals, like only oceans. Then the second one are the rest of the animals, and the third is only humans. Okay, so you can go there, all plastination. Okay. So to end, I want to show you this this thought that plastination unveils the beauty beneath the skin, frozen in time between death and decay. This is what the idea of Dr. von Hagens. And this is interesting. Von Hagens never would go and develop this technique if he didn't have the challenge that was given to him by a professor. I don't know if you all know, von Hagens was a prisoner in the West Germany who could try to escape. And when he tried to escape, they put him in prison. And he found out that if he would pay $40,000, they would allow him to come to Heidelberg. When he came to the Heidelberg, what happened is that he came in, and then he was an MD, but he couldn't practice. He was a scientist, so he went to work for the professor of anatomy, old professor of anatomy, that told him, I want you to prepare some organs for me, okay, because I want to do some electron microscopy. Here's a kidney, and you want you to encase the kidney in epoxy. So Dr. von Hagens asked him, but why do you want to put the plastic outside the kidney, not inside the kidney? Okay? And then he said, you do what I tell you and don't ask me. Okay? So then, but von Hagens kept insisting, until one day the professor came and looked and said, what are you doing? I told you not to do that, so if you continue doing that, I'm going to fire you. A professor of pathology saw him and said, you know what, this guy is up to something. Went to him and said, do you want to come and work with me? And he said, what do you want me to do? He said, no, I'm going to pay you to do what you want to do, okay? And that's the way plastination was invented, okay? Because he had the imagination and the tools that somebody gave him, okay, to do it. Do you have any questions? Yes.
When bodies or body parts come to you, how do you prevent the decaying process that naturally happens? The gases,
I fix with the formaldehyde. That's the first thing I do. Yeah, the first thing. When I do epoxy, that is the cross sections, I don't need to fix the tissue. I fix the tissue for two reasons. Dr. von Hagen said that you don't need to fix the tissue. Okay? You can go direct to plastination because the acetone will be able to preserve. But I'm always afraid of diseases, okay? Because, for example, if you have an organ that has a disease, how sure I am that I'm not going to contaminate somebody for that. So that's why I always preserve in formaldehyde. And it's interesting, for formaldehyde, I can put an organ and forget the organ there. Like you're going to see in the museum, I have a hand that was done in 1977, okay? And it was in a jar, and then I took the jar and I plastinated that. Brains are the ones that we need to preserve for a long period of time because brain is mainly water and fat. So it means that if I dehydrate and is not very well fixed, the brain will be kind of like a nut, okay? So I have a brain like this, and it's going to be very small, okay? And but I have to preserve, okay? Yes?
Has anyone thought of using freeze-drying techniques instead of the acetone drying process?
Yes, the freeze-dry came before, in fact, before even the plastination. And the freeze-dry, it does a very good job, but some of the tissues do not respond very nice when you freeze-dry. It gets brittle, okay? The plastination will allow the body not to be as brittle as the freeze-dry.
No, but I mean, instead of using the acetone process, do freeze-drying and then do the plastination?
And do the plastination? Well, you need to have the acetone in it because the acetone is the intermediate solvent for the plastic. So that's what the major problem we have, even in other countries, that acetone is prohibited because explosive, and they want to use alcohol, and they can use alcohol and dehydrate like normally you would dehydrate a tissue, but then in the end they have to put in the acetone because I need the acetone as an intermediate solvent. Another question?
Carlos,
Yes.
real
Yes.
quick, can you just share with the audience your travels and you were taking parts
Yeah.
around the country and you went through the scanners at the airport?
Yes, that's a very interesting.
It's not good.
That is the interesting story. One day I was going to Hawaii. We had a convention in Hawaii, a Plastination conference, and I took a brain, okay? And then I put the brain in my hand thing, and I said, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And goes to the Homeland Security, okay? It goes to Homeland Securities, and then as soon as I start my bag go in, and then I pass through and I stay waiting for the bag, okay? And they pass in and stop. And then they came back again, and then continues a little, and stopped back again. I said, I'm going to get in trouble here, okay? So then they call a woman came in, and then look, and they go on and on and on, and then they call the supervisor. And the supervisor came in, and then when they call the supervisor, I say, I am going to be in big trouble, okay? So the supervisor look at that thing, look very serious to the screen, and look at me and say, is this a human brain? And I said, yes, it is. And then, because I learned that you never lie, okay? I said, yes, this is a human brain. She said, do you know the heart just passed here 5 minutes ago? If it was other time, I was going to say yes, and the legs are coming behind because we are assembled there, but I don't dare to do that anymore, okay? And the other one was when I went to Brazil, I brought the frog that you saw that in the picture. And it was interesting because it was in the box, and they asked me, what do you have in the box? This is in the customs here in Detroit. And then the same thing, I don't lie. And I said, I have a human foot, a human brain, okay? And then I have a spinal cord, human spinal cord, and the frog. He looked at me and said, a frog? You cannot bring frog in this country. So he didn't even think about that I was talking about human body parts, okay? So the first thing I was going to say, how did you get this body part? Maybe I killed somebody, okay? No, they made me to scan. So I had to put the box in a scanner, and then the other person that was playing the scanner looked at me and said, God, this is so nice. It looks like real. So then I thought about it and said, I'm not going to say that's real. Okay? Because I said, yes, they don't do this kind of things so nice now of the day or today because you don't know even what is copy or what is real. Okay? What question?
This just looks like taxidermy to me. But when after you've injected the polymer and it's frozen, is that when you dissect it down to the muscle?
No, I have to do before.
Oh.
I have to dissect before. Once it's all done, all the dissections performed, then I can start plastinating. Okay? Because the tissue gets a little rigidity, and it's very hard for you to really remove very dense tissue. So it has to be completely dissected, and then after that you plastinate.
Don't you lose some of your form when you do that?
Yes, you do, because like if I get a body and I fix the body, the first thing starts with the fixation. If I fix the body with formaldehyde, it already gets a little stiff. So then I have to put in a position already that I want or to enhance at that moment. Then if I put in the acetone, it's going to get a little more harder. And then when it's in the end, then I can completely solidify. Because the solidification of the plastic is interesting. Because it's a gas, and the contact with the plastic, the solidification starts from the outside to the inside. So it means that if I do one organ now, and I harden the organ, I can bring and pass around, everybody can see. But if I cut, in 2 months, 3 months, I may have liquid inside yet, because this will take sometimes 6 months to harden completely.
And the freeze dry, when do you freeze dry?
I don't freeze dry. What I do is that I do my embalming, fixation, dissection, and I put in the acetone. At that point, when I put in the acetone is a minus 25 degrees. So then the idea of acetone being cold is that as soon as you put the specimen inside of minus 25 degrees acetone, practically it fixes in the position because it's so cold. Like if I want to make a stomach to be distended, what I do, I put the acetone, cold acetone inside, and then I immerse into the acetone, and then the organ is going to be open. It's going to be round, full. And then I can even remove the acetone because it's going to be frozen.
Sounds very complicated.
Yeah. You're welcome to come and see the process if you want.
Do you have your chambers built, or do you build them yourself with your equipment?
No, they were built here. It's interesting. It was a gentleman here in VR systems that make ducts for air conditioning. So I brought him in the lab and I said, I need to have a chamber made. Okay, and then he made a chamber for me, and the chamber has to be very thick because it's stainless steel. But the pressures are so high that you have to have a way inside of the chamber that to prevent collapse, because they collapse with the vacuum that's so intense. But they built the chambers for me here. Okay, one chamber like that, it varies. One chamber costs $10,000 to build. But they have to be very well done because, for example, I had one chamber, the big chamber that you saw, I have a gasket and has the glass. So the gasket, for some reason with the pressure, the gasket is slipped in. As it did that, so the vacuum then got outside the freezer. So then I heard this big explosion, looked like explosion. When I went to see, my freezer was buckled like a pop can, okay? Because it's so, it is amazing the amount of vacuum. Okay? It don't explode, it's implode, okay? Yes?
Do you have a system installed of cables and strings to position your figures yet?
No, have to be all muscles. I use the medical students to help. So they come to put in the positions that I want. And then so far, for example, torsos is much easier to deal with torsos. Now I have a big chamber for a human body, for a full body, and now I need to have some kind of strings to put in the positions that I want. Okay. Yes.
Thank you for your talks, which I found really mind-expanding.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring up a question about limits, and so it's for both of you. And I preface it as follows. There are some architects that object to CAD, to computer-assisted design.
Okay.
And prefer the old, balsam models. They think students should cut their fingers and go through all the messiness of constructing these 3D but volume models.
Okay.
And only in that way will they understand how a building actually, what proportions are. And so I was wondering, in relation to that, with the two modes of imaging and building and modeling that you have respectively come up with, how do you each see the limitations of each other's approach?
That's very interesting. It's a very interesting question because, for example, dissections. Experience and then I feel that dissection of the human body is essential for the knowledge of the future physicians. Because why? They have to go in, dissect it, they have to look at the three-dimensional part of it, they have to know what is under, what is above, and then this only if you dissect the human body that you will be able to do it, because the act that you have to remove things and seeing under the skin, that's what you learn. There is a lot of students, a lot of institutions now that they no longer do dissection. They have prosections. The thing is already dissected, and the students they have to go there and just learn what it was dissected. I don't know in the future what is going to happen because up to now nobody has measured yet if the students that only learn with the dissected bodies or all the ones that are dissected, if they will retain more knowledge compared in the two groups, because it's very hard to do this research. Okay. Now, in regard to the presentation of Roy, this has been fascinating because the 3D that you can generate.
Well, we just gave a talk last week on traditional versus digital. And of course, I grew up in the traditional world, if you will, with traditional approaches to media. Of course, the computer came along and kind of simplified those things. But truthfully, the computer's mimicking everything that I had to do and learn traditionally. And it's sped up the process for us to do what we do as a communicator and create multiple illustrations and animations to get the job done and more efficiently, effectively. But I still sketch with a pencil and graphite on paper and then scan it in the computer to do my work because I can't replace this. This is too intelligent. It's too, I've been trained for many years to feel the tactility and the feedback of paper and graphite and a kneaded eraser, et cetera, to do my work. And again, getting into the computer is just another step for efficiency. But there's a huge compromise. I still have students come down as an intern and help the interns appreciate what they're doing traditionally and then into the digital part of it. And the reason we do the traditional part is I think every person needs to struggle. We can go to the computer world and we can click on a button and we can get presets and all of a sudden you've got a three-dimensional object, you've got a drop shadow and you've got some color. But if you don't know how to get there, if you don't have the foundational approach to understand why does that color look like it, why does that shadow represented in this fashion give more volume, you create more depth, and that's what we're trying to do is recreate a more virtual, realistic world, especially in medicine for the fidelity of tissue, et cetera. If they don't understand that traditionally or foundationally, then I think they're lacking. It's safe that you can push buttons, but where's the aesthetics? Where's the real beauty of the art that we do? We represent the human body, which is, it's magnificent machines, magnificent creation. So we have to do due diligence to it, and I think traditional approach is still needed and still a part of what we do.
In the Plastination is nice for you to use as accessory tool because the students can see the specimen done, but for example, variations. If you think about variations of human body from cadaver to cadaver, this is the only way they will learn if they have the cadaver, okay? And as they go from table to table and seeing the differences that exist in human body. Unfortunately, when you have prosections, you don't have it, Okay, you don't have the same chance to see it.
Yeah, normally in the anatomical event of dissection, once you take it apart, you can't put it back together, so for the most part. But it's good to have the plastination because it does allow you time to study and become a little bit more intimate with the relationships of the spinal cord, which when you see it for the first time when it's dissected, you think, wow, it's just that big? I thought it was bigger, or there was more to it than that. I mean, it's a very durable structure, but minute in nature from what you think until you actually see it.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's a
true.
remarkable world to see and understand.
You know, I know Roy for how long? 30 years? And then we had this opportunity sometimes that Roy and I work together in the two different worlds. Okay?
But the same goal of medical education, trying to
Exactly,
get in there. So
exactly.
that's good stuff.